a lot of people see a business as riskier than a job. I think a job is actually riskier than a business in a lot of ways if you come at it from a different angle. In a job, you only have one customer, your employer. If that
Right.
customer decides that they don't like you anymore, versus in a business, you'll have many customers, and then, potentially more robust. And in a job, your income potential is fixed. In a business, you could make as much as you want, really, or as much as your business is able to structurally.
What's up, people? My name is Katie Friesen, and you're listening to Humans of the World podcast. This podcast gives you insights into human behavior. It's walking a mile in someone else's shoes, understanding why people act the way that they do. Make sure to give us a follow on Instagram. That's at Humans of the World podcast. If you don't have Instagram, check out the website, www.humansoftheworld.co. There you can join our community group chat on Telegram. You can talk with different people from around the world, different cultures. There'll be free giveaways, guest access, all cool and exclusive stuff to the Telegram group chat. I would love to meet with you guys. I would love to chat with you. You can find it on Instagram or on the website. Thank you for being you. Thank you for being great. And I hope you enjoy this next conversation. Today's conversation is with Christian Echevarria. This is part 2. His first part was just a general story, kind of an overview of his life. Pretty interesting. Check it out if you have not. And this episode, part 2, is kind of like a bonus episode where me and Chris just talk about lifestyle business versus venture capital and all that kind of fun stuff. So if you want to check out the first episode, check out www.humansoftheworld.co. Okay, I have 3 follow-up questions, but first one, what would you say are the fundamental entrepreneurial skills?
Talking to customers.
Okay.
So you have to know how to find people, how to get them to agree to chat with you, how to ask them about their problems in a way that's not leading no Mojo. A couple of my dogs in here.
Aww. What's your dog's name?
Mojo.
Aww. Mojo.
So yeah, knowing how to find your customers or your potential customers, interviewing them such that you're not asking leading questions and you can find out about the real problem, closing a sale, so taking pre-orders and things like that, and then building. So like Nabal said, if you can build and you can sell, then the world is yours essentially.
Got it.
That's what it comes down to. But knowing what to build and knowing how to build and when to build and all that, it all comes from the customer discovery aspect of it. What you may think of as sales, that's 80% of your job, I think, as an entrepreneur. The other 20% is building the actual thing, which is the thing that also nobody cares. Let me just put that out there. Nobody cares about your really cool technology or about your trickety trick or your until they have a reason to. So it solves their problem or it gives them some benefit or something like that. I know that you are probably, if I'm speaking directly to an entrepreneur, I know that you're in love probably with your mechanism, but the market won't necessarily care at all.
Got it.
So, save yourself some time, unless you're doing it as a hobby, which case, vaya con Dios, do it as a hobby for as long as you want, and maybe one day it'll turn into a business, but don't start trying to build a mechanism to have it become, with the intention of having it become a business. That's just not the right way. That's the wrong sequence. You start with the problem and then you build a mechanism for it.
Question. Okay, so now the second part of my question. At first, if you want to tell everyone, so everyone else has the context, a little bit about Liquid Carrot, what you guys were doing, what you were building. So just so Absolutely. Everyone knows. And then the follow-up question to that is, given the lessons you know now, what would you have done differently with Liquid Carrot? So go.
Yeah. Okay. Liquid Carrot was essentially a framework that was supposed to become a service that would essentially build your deep learning models for you. So essentially, if you had a problem and you had data, you would essentially grab this data, put it into the framework, or the tool, or the magic box, whatever you want to call it. And the magic box would spit out a model that would do what you wanted it to do. So like if you wanted it to predict something, it would predict something. Like let's say, you know, you passed it like market data and you wanted it to predict like what the price of a stock was going to be, or whether or not it should trade or sell at a given moment, then it would do that. Or if you wanted it to take a series of steps and to get like some outcome, then you would go ahead. Yeah.
No, sorry, keep going.
No, then you'd go ahead and feed it that data and basically just let it learn on it, and it would just build the model for you, instead of like kind of like the other way around, where like, you know, the problem that we tried to solve was you build like deep learning models and you kind of just like see what sticks. Like you try different like combinations, you put like Lego blocks together and you hope that this is the right one, and then you try it, like you train it, and then you try it, and then you hope that it works, and then sometimes it doesn't. You go back to the drawing board and you'll spend a very long time trying to do that, like iteratively. Yeah, so that's what the product or the mechanism was supposed to solve.
Okay.
Now, going on to what we did wrong. Well, we didn't really start with the customer problem. Okay. So what we later on discovered is, for example, that only very, very large companies have this problem because they have the level of sophistication to actually like be working at this level. Most companies have a problem of much, like, call it lower sophistication, where they're just like, they don't know like how to format their data, or, you know, they're not even interested in like doing deep learning because they don't need it. Like they could use a much simpler model or something like that. So I just would have started with like where people are at in the related, like anything related to where we ultimately wanted to go. And then we probably would have created like some data cleaning tool or something like that, or something that would just create like a more simplified version. Like instead of deep learning, we do like I don't know, linear regression or something, and that would work for like certain, you know, customers or whatever. Start down market, get sales, get money, and then work our way up as we like, you know, understand the customer better and the problem and the market and all that, instead of trying to go for this incredibly ambitious mechanism.
So you're trying to sell the Lamborghini, but they just need the Toyota kind of thing.
Yeah, they just need to go get some groceries, and that's actually that's actually the case with a lot of markets. So that's actually in like the Dane Maxwell like philosophy or whatever, is that sometimes the problem, like you as the sometimes, most of the time, the problem that your customers want solved is probably incredibly simple from your perspective. So just like, don't get your pride mixed in it, and don't get your sense of identity mixed into your product, and then try to build something that you think is grand, or that you can be, you know, you want to be proud of. Instead, build something that people actually want, by asking them and letting them and taking what they say seriously, and then observing their willingness to pay. So, you know, the biggest test that you could have for whether or not people want your actual product is ask them to pay. If they pay, they want it. If they don't pay, then there's probably something wrong in your, maybe it's in your pricing, maybe it's in the exact way that you're explaining your mechanism. So the Dane Maxwell way or whatever, or I guess it's also kind of like a lean startup way, is like, ask them what the problem is. Ask them what they tried to do to solve the problem, because a lot of people will complain to you, but not actually, it's not a problem they actually care to solve because they haven't tried anything yet. And then ask them what that problem is worth, ask them to pay that amount, take their money, and then show them like different ideas that you have to solve the problem. And you can also ask them what their ideal solution would be like, by the way, so you can even like cheat and like, you know, get them to give you the answers on the test. And then you just show them what you think they meant, and you keep iterating until they're like, yep, that's what I want. If you give me that, for sure, I'll keep paying. Like, great. Then you go and you sell it to like 10 or 15 other people, and you co-develop it with all of them, and you've essentially had your customers finance your product with no risk, and like the best validation you could ever get, which is like they paid you for it and they're serious and they're giving you their time to build this mechanism. That's like a completely different model than like what I see most people operating under. And it makes so much sense that it's like, I can't believe I was doing it like any other way, you know? This would have saved me so much time.
Yeah. Oh, good. It's good. Whatever. That was like a perfect summary of essentially that theory of thought.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. And then going now to your current business, what are some learnings that you've taken away from what you're currently doing?
I think it's important to get like customers in the beginning that are going to be like forgiving of your like learning.
Okay.
So for like my marketing startup, I mean startup, whatever, business, since we got startup in the brain. But our first like client, she was very patient with us, and that allowed us the time and the space to explore how to solve the problem. And that sort of was like gave us the ability to like come up with a really good solution. And I feel like that's what you need. Like if you at first need to do the first few customers at cost or something like that, and not really like take their money, but like don't make money off of it, and just like set like expectations, do it, because you're gonna make it that's much less risk for them to jump in, right? Give them personalized attention, because you can now that you're small, and learn as much as you can. Like you helping them solve this problem is gonna just benefit your company later on massively. Plus they're gonna be very happy. Hey, come on. Yeah. Okay. It's just gonna help you massively. Like, no, hold on, give me 1 second.
You're good.
Yeah. So getting back to it, yeah, your customer is just gonna appreciate like the fact that you're giving them so much personalized attention and really listening to what they want. So that's the thing. Most people will not listen to other people. This is true in business too. So if you just take the time to just listen to what they actually want and be receptive, your customers will love you for it. Bless you.
Thank you.
You'll have incredible customer loyalty, and you're going to learn a lot, and you're going to do it in a way that's low risk for them and low risk for you. So this is the way, you know?
There we go. So spoken from the man himself.
Yeah. I mean, this is what has worked, and I've tried a lot of things that haven't worked. So,
yeah. Well, I would say like, oh, sorry, go for it.
No, I mean, that's just from experience, basically.
Yeah. Well, and I would say like one of your strengths being your friend for, yeah, what, we've known each other for 3-4 years now.
Has it been that long?
I think.
Wow.
I think so. I think at least 3 years, maybe not 4
That's
yet,
crazy.
but you're incredibly good at empathizing, and you're incredibly good at listening. So I think you're really utilizing your strengths among many other strengths that you have.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I like it. I like talking to people. I like listening to them. I like to just kind of like the draw of entrepreneurship too, is like you get to learn about people's like lives and stuff like that. I mean, if you really get into it, I think if you're doing entrepreneurship the right way, yeah. So I'm into it.
Cool.
Yeah, and it's a different model, right? Like that's the other thing too, that I just don't think that like maybe later on, once you're thinking about your business, like you're running it purely like a machine, and you're just like switching variables and stuff like that, and like you're at massive scale. Yeah. But I really like the personal connection of like running a smaller business, like with more, like less volume. Yeah, I think there are different ways, and they are legitimate. Can you create a $1 billion company this way? Maybe not with this exact model. I mean, you probably have to switch a couple things. I mean, could it lead to a $1 billion company? Yeah, potentially, because you're going to understand the problem really well. Right. And you're going to have worked on a solution. And if you automate it and you have customer trust, like, absolutely, I don't see why not. But you can make good money. Like, I think a lot of people, it's kind of lost on them, the idea that there's 2 ways to make money in business. You could get a lot of customers at a relatively lower amount of money, or you could charge more money for a customer. The math really works out in your favor if you're charging somebody $10,000 a month to do a high ticket service. I mean, if you get 10 customers, you're already at $1 million a year. versus to do this as a SaaS at $10. At $10 payment, that's a lot of people.
Right.
Yeah. Which seems more feasible to you?
Right.
Finding 100 people to buy your product, or finding 10,000 or 100,000.
So that just comes down to, you got to solve the problem that's worth $10,000 per month to solve.
I think those are the problems worth solving anyway. But anyway.
Yeah. True. Because then they're problems that really hurt. You know.
Yeah. I mean, to each your own, but I mean, it doesn't have to be $10,000 either. But I think the problem that you solve for a company shouldn't be painful enough for them to want to pay a good amount. I mean, later you can go down market and you can automate it and make it much less high touch, right? So you can always like refactor your service into something that makes sense at scale. But I think if you're giving them personalized attention, and they're an early adopter or whatever, and they're getting like really good results from it, I think your client should be willing to pay, and you should think of them as clients, not customers. Your client should be willing to pay you a good amount of money to solve that problem, or else that problem's not really that painful for them, and it doesn't matter that much. And you're selling, vitamins. It's not prescription pills, as the saying goes, or whatever.
Quick, you said you should think of them as your clients instead of your customers. Do you want to like elaborate on that? Like what exactly do you mean by that?
I mean, if you think about it, somebody as a customer, they pay you. There's a lifetime value that they represent. They're like essentially a money bag to you. When they're your clients, you're looking out for their best interests. A client, by definition, is like, it's almost like your job is to protect them from XYZ, or to help them get the best outcome. And your customer is somebody that pays you, like, and represents money to you. I personally also don't think that, like, I think as we get like more digitized and the market broadens up even more, we get more globalized, whatever, like customer experience, that personal human touch is going to be something that's going to be a really big differentiator. Which again is another reason I like the lifestyle business, because it's like, and it happens all the time. Like we're just switching mechanisms right now because a mechanism that we were trying didn't have a feature we wanted. And it's like, well, it's mostly automated anyway. Let's just switch to another thing. Versus if you have like a relationship with somebody, they know your business, like, it's just it's like just to pick up and start over with like somebody new, it's not the same. So you're almost in a better position competitively, even though you're in a worse position at scale. Like I'm saying, the tech startup is only one configuration out of the entire universe of possible configurations of businesses.
Which happens to benefit the VCs more than the founders anyways. Okay, cool.
Now I can get off my soapbox. Hold up.
No, I agree with you. No, I agree with you. I'm like, after being in the VC world a bit, I don't know. I don't think there's like, it's valuable in the sense that if you need the money to develop something in a long time scale, but I don't know. I don't really like the VC world. I don't think there's a lot of value add. I think just people that have a lot of leverage, that's all. And
I mean, I think the theory goes that you can spend a lot of money if eventually you're going to get someone that has a lifetime value that's very high. So your customer acquisition costs, you can spend tons of money trying to acquire them and or building the mechanism, as long as the lifetime value is very high and your marginal costs are very low. That's the idea. But predicated, it's kind of like a hidden assumption in the tech startup, is that you're essentially going to become massively large. You're going to essentially become a monopoly. Which is a formidable task.
Tough.
And I think the statistics reflect that. Many self-described startups, like more than 99%, from what I understand, they fail. I think the statistics are like they fail within 5 years or 7 years or something like that. Like it's just everybody basically just dies like on that time horizon. Whereas a lifestyle business, if you run it well, I mean, I bet you the numbers look a lot better than that. Let's just start there.
Yeah. Right. And why do you think that? Oh, go for it.
Yeah. No, go ahead. I think your question is very interesting.
Why do you think that most people don't know about the theory of thought in terms of thinking of it as a lifestyle business? Like, why do you think most people, it's not the default to turn to?
I mean, perception. I mean, just like anything else, right? Right. A lot of lifestyle businesses are kind of like the agency model that's sold as like a quick get rich quick scheme, and then it's kind of like slimy. There's probably that perception there. It's also not as sexy to say, hey, you're gonna have a nice business that's gonna produce, I mean, a good amount of money, very stable. But you can be like Mark Zuckerberg or Gates or whatever, any of these names, Bezos. That's just more sexy. And I think that there's an entire industry that has an incentive to present it in the best light, like VC. And so they do a lot of stuff like events, networking. If you think about all the things that go into the VC marketing engine, there's actually quite a bit. Yeah. To popularize it, like content, all of that, articles.
There's a lot more content out there in terms of VC funding than there is lifestyle businesses.
Yeah, that thankfully is changing a little bit now with the advent of the indie hacker movement and the micro entrepreneur, and even like now there are micro entrepreneurship like investors, which is a whole other category.
Right.
I think that's changing, and I think that's really good. But the dominant share of entrepreneurship focus is just there, I think, because that's where most of the resources, the highest incentive to like market that is. Plus, I think it's also like, again, it's a perception thing. Like, if you think about the original lifestyle business, it's the mom and pop shop. But then in the recent times, we've seen the mom and pop shop get eviscerated by the technology. And so I think that might lead to the incorrect conclusion that like a lifestyle business isn't like viable because of technological advancement. And I think that that's actually not true at all. And like new formulations of the lifestyle business that were previously impossible are now possible. And I think Patio 11, which is very influential in this space, he has a good quote about this. And he says, like, essentially, like, most people have not even begun to imagine, or we don't even know the entire expanse of careers and businesses that are possible through the internet. Yeah, we're like scratching the surface, just like, so, yeah.
Well, it's cool because the internet, like, essentially, it just allows you connectivity, right? So now to me, the internet really actually allows you to follow your passion and make a business out of it. As cliche as that sounds, right? Because, like, if you're interested in it, you can find a community around the world that's interested in it, and then it's just about solving that community's problems, right? So that's what I think is freaking awesome about it, is like there are jobs out, like there are businesses and jobs out there that you're like, what? Like, that's a business? That's crazy.
The whole creator economy, for example.
Yeah, crazy.
Entirely.
Absolutely nuts. Yeah, it's cool. And it's interesting being in like two different worlds. For me, like being in Miami a little bit, and I know that California is a whole other ballgame, and same thing for New York, right? But it's like comparing that experience then to coming back, let's say, to my province, right? Where it's like there's actually a guy that I spoke to, and he on YouTube, he made sneaker videos, which kind of propelled him into success in that ends, right? But when he comes back to our city, right, he'll talk to like people here and be like, oh, like we'll ask him what he does, right? And he'll say, oh, like I made like videos on YouTube on sneaker. And it's kind of like a laugh, like people just like, okay, right? But then meanwhile, this kid's doing like way better than anyone else, like the accountant who, got his solid career. But here it's like that career of getting the typical is still celebrated, right? And it's like,
sure, of course. But your sneaker friend is the one who's laughing to the bank, literally and metaphorically.
Literally.
So It's perception. Yeah. A lot of people see a business as riskier than a job. I think a job is actually riskier than a business in a lot of ways if you come at it from a different angle. In a job, you only have one customer, your employer. If that customer decides that they don't like you anymore, whereas in a business, you'll have many customers, and then, you know, potentially more robust. And in a job, your income potential is fixed. In a business, you could make as much as you want, really, like, or as much as your business is able to structurally. I don't know. In a business, like, the customer doesn't really care about you as an individual. They care about whether or not you're able to solve their problems. In a job, that is very much not the case, because there's compliance risk and all this other stuff, you know, and credentialism and all of that. I mean, I could go on and on, but like, there's a lot of advantages that having a business has that, in my opinion, make it cumulatively less risky for a certain type of person than a job.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing I would probably, like, from my experiences, like, so if you do have a business, right, then you are last man standing, you are accountable. It kind of comes down to you. And I think in my experiences, some personality types don't actually want the responsibility sometimes, is what I've seen from my experiences. Like, just comparing some friend group, I have different types of friend groups, right? And obviously, like, let's say our friend group, we're all very entrepreneurial. That excites people to be able to be like, yes, I want to do this. But I know other people, it's like they don't actually want the responsibility sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. I mean, the job, I think jobs are right for some people, and some situations. Like, sometimes, like, you're down on your luck as an entrepreneur and you need a job to make some cash. All right, do it. Just like, I don't know that I would see myself, like, I could potentially work a job in, you know, I mean, tomorrow, if like circumstances should present themselves that way. But like, I reserve the right to do that. But is it something that I want long term, or will I not have like some kind of like entrepreneurial ambition? Like, doubtful. Yeah, I think that business is just so much better in my mind.
No, I agree. Well, the other thing too is, like, if you have your own business, or if you create a business, like, the amount that you have to learn is like way more, in my opinion, right? So if you're a job, you're learning one function, you're doing one thing, and that's it. So you do your own business, you now become more valuable if you do want to get a job, right? Because now you have a way broader,
all types of skills.
Yeah,
and achievements and stuff like that. Yeah, that you can present. Absolutely. Yeah, you can look at it that way as well. For me too, the idea of doing one function over and over again, is dreadfully boring.
Oh, I can't. Yeah, no.
Plus, also having to deal with the politics a little bit of the office is always something that I've not really been a fan of. Versus with customers, you can see if you get along with, especially if you're running a smaller type of business, lifestyle business, you can see if you get along with the customer before you start. You can set the terms of your engagement. It's a different position to be working from. Where in the job, you're essentially at the mercy of your boss's will and the office politics, and they're the ones who control whether or not you get a raise, stay employed, etc., etc., etc. As a business owner, you have a lot more self-determination and autonomy.
No, I would agree. I would say the only other, I agree with everything. The only other benefits I would say about the jobs right now, currently how everything's set up, that I see would be at a job, right? You do get a lot of knowledge transfer, I would say, depending on where you are. And I find when you're on your own, it just depends on the type of person you are and what's your aptitude or ability to learn on your own, right? And then two, the job also provides a community, right? Because when you're starting out, right, it is kind of you talking to your customers, right? But I guess at the beginning stages, right, you're kind of on your own to some degree, right? So I would say that's the other reason. But I mean, moving towards the future, and I think as people are more in their own businesses, I'm sure there will be And I think there already are, like, right, community groups that people can join and all that kind of stuff, where you might be able to fulfill that function. But that's the other only thing I like about a job, is I know, because like when I was kind of going off my own or whatever, right, that it's like you kind of miss that knowledge transfer that you get from.
Yeah, absolutely. People. I agree with that. I think though, being in a room full of entrepreneurs is just a lot more interesting to me personally.
No, yeah, I agree with you 100%, right? 100%.
They're very differentiated people. Yeah. So yeah, they have unique interests. They have different ways of seeing the world, and they have different ways of doing this thing that we all do, business, different philosophies. Yeah. So pros and cons. And you can give up equity in your company if it's really gonna be more valuable net. But I think the growth model is kind of like crazy. The equity growth model. So you have to hit that growth, or essentially, like, you're not making the kinds of returns on your business that is like worth it for you. You really have to hit those growth marks to make that equity valuable, to then sell it to somebody else, or IPO, which really nowadays is just sell it to somebody else, get acquired or whatever. Or merge.
What? Sorry, go for it. No, go finish.
No, and just with the cash model, I mean, like with the cash flow business, which also the overlap of cash flow businesses and lifestyle businesses is fairly high. Almost like safe to say that they're almost always like the same thing. Money comes in, you see it, you decide how you want to invest it in your business, and or if you want to pay yourself, it's wonderful. Like, it's not fake like paper money, it's real money you can spend and use right now. Like, it's just completely different model, right? Because there are people who are founders who are like paper rich, like rich on paper, but like cash poor, they can't do their groceries. And sometimes you have these wonderful towering valuations, and then you have the fall from grace, and like, oh, well, there you go. There's 5 years of your life undid. Like, and that's really what attracted me to the lifestyle business, is the time. You can't get the time back. You are living. You got one life.
Live it right, or live it the way you want to live it.
Yeah, exactly. Precisely. So I just felt like, when I was faced with the juncture of like, what am I going to do next? Am I going to sink some time in an unknown quantity of time for an unknown reward in an unknown time horizon, where there's actually a good possibility that this will be worth zero? No, it's not very appealing to me. You look at it that way, it's kind of like a really bad gamble. If you look at it from an expected value calculation. Less than a 1% chance is worth $1 billion. 99% chance is worth zero.
Makes sense. I think I agree with you. Question for you: what do you think about the let's say, like, if you have employees in your companies, what do you think about like the equity model in terms of sharing equity with your employees?
I think it could be good. It can motivate people. I think you could just as easily share revenue. Or do performance-based incentives.
That kind
or
of thing.
Give more bonuses. There are other compensation options that can potentially differentiate you quite a bit from other employers if you want to attract the best talent. You can also be more flexible with the way that you work with people. Versus in the VC startup model, usually your investors have a seat on your board, usually a controlling interest on your board. So if you do not run the business the way that they like, then they can potentially take over your company, which is kind of like the secret, let's not talk about this part, on venture capital. The space of possibilities that you have as a lifestyle business, sky's the limit. Get as creative as you want. Versus you don't have that freedom when potentially, unless you got a very good, very benevolent investor, typically you don't have that freedom as a VC-backed company. So something to think about.
I think also the other point on VCs, while we're on it, I don't think that I would take a VC on my board who like, I don't think I'd ever really go that route because I'm 100% agree with you. I just don't think it's a great, I don't think the incentive line, I agree with you 100%. But especially I find a lot of VCs, if they are entrepreneurs themselves and haven't grown and scaled and sold the company and they're just finance people, I find finance people are very good at analyzing companies, right? And like looking through all whatever the things and predicting where they think it's going to go, but they don't actually have a good understanding of how a business runs. It's like they can write anything down on paper, but they never actually had to execute on that, right? So my experience is like, oh, we'll just do this. Well, like I don't think they understand how hard it is to get like their first 10 customers, right? Because they've never had to do that. It's just like they're just looking at numbers on a screen and this is where this goes. So that would be my qualm with a lot of VCs, especially if they're not founders themselves, because they don't actually know the whole process of building a company and what it takes to run a company, you know?
Yeah, the map is definitely not the terrain, as the saying goes.
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah. I mean, it's an industry.
Right.
That's what I can say about that. Yeah. It makes money for some people. Although I don't know about most funds returns, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I don't think they're great. I don't think they're
good. Like there are some ones that are excellent, like Andreessen Horowitz. I mean,
it's a
home run after home run, but for the rest of the ones, I don't know. And
well,
also then
I'll go for it.
No, and then also the other thing too, which I find interesting about the positioning, the way that VCs and accelerators and stuff like that, they will market themselves. Sometimes they market themselves as like, hey, we'll support you and stuff like that. But I actually think that the really successful ones are actually more, they're probably better at identifying the companies that are on a trajectory to succeed anyway and investing in those than they are in necessarily like precipitating those outcomes. Which is kind of like a qualm I have with, kind of like a little dishonest the way that things are marketed. So, yeah.
Right. And then again, if you just follow the incentives as well, VCs need to provide a return to their LPs, which puts stress on them. Like, just incentives just aren't really aligned on any.
Yeah, and then that's the other issue as well, right? The LPs, they have a fiduciary duty, literally enshrined in law, and that also restricts the space of possibilities. It's kind of like one big chain, like turtles all the way down. Like, the LP has to, or sorry, I think is it the GP then the LP? I don't know if I'm switching my terms up here, but whatever it is, the person who actually makes the investments, they have a fiduciary duty to the person that invests, and that means that they can only make some decisions without it being like poo-pooed, like potentially down the line, and them having some exposure. And then they go ahead and they turn around, they take like controlling interest on boards in startups, and then they restrict the amount of decisions that those businesses can make to potentially some things that are non-poo-pooable. And I think ultimately the market and all of us were poorer for it, to be honest with you, like on a fundamental, like theoretical level, like the space of possibilities of businesses that are maybe workable under like the structural forces of VC are potentially smaller than the ones that are workable in like lifestyle business that has no restrictions. The only restriction is will your customer pay you or not?
But I guess my question was, did Amazon ever take on any money, or Amazon is completely self-funded? It did take on money.
It did. Yeah.
Because I guess that would be my only question is like, okay, so now if we do think of the really big companies, right, that have shaped a good wall of the way we do and open up a lot of possibilities, right? Like Amazon has opened up a whole universe of people who could now have their own online stores.
It's a platform,
right?
Correct.
Right. And so to some degree, I think that VC does play a function in those types of things, but then you can argue that, well, Amazon, Google, and Facebook, now they have a ridiculous amount of power, right? So I mean, I don't know.
And that they stifle competition and innovation. Right. Yeah. Actually, a big argument to, hey, we're not going to fund that is, I mean, Google's going to move into this market and crush you. Yeah.
Right. True.
So
True.
Yeah. which is, it just gets wheeled out over and over again. Like, hey, X giant is going to move into this market and destroy you. And Amazon kind of is a quintessential like VC poster child, because essentially like some people call this scorched earth capitalism, but essentially like Amazon reduce prices, run at a loss, take VC funded money, put everybody else out of business, establish a monopoly, and then you're good.
Yeah. And now Amazon
that's kind of what it takes.
Yeah. Go for it, sorry.
No, that's what it takes to get those returns, though. You have to have that growth. I think it's implicit in the model. But I'm sorry, I didn't want to cut you off.
No, I was just making a comment. And now, like, if you go to Amazon, it's like probably now one of the most expensive. Like, you could get way cheaper stuff at other places now. Whereas before, you knew that Amazon was always the lowest price.
Yeah, but now it's so convenient, and it has such a high selection.
Everything.
And the customer service is pretty biased to the buyer, which is obviously bad for the sellers in some cases.
Right.
Actually, really bad for the sellers in some cases, because they prioritize the demand side. But pros and cons. What do I see as the true real function of VC is to enable technologies that would have otherwise not been able to exist, like deep tech. Right. I see that as a true function of VC. However, that is very risky for them, and they actually don't make that many types of deep tech deals. If you look at the entire space of like what they invest in. But for me, that's like the true function of VC. It's to enable something that otherwise structurally would not have been able to exist through money. And ironically, if they do that well, then that's also a barrier to entry. So I don't know. Whatever. I'm not a VC, but I've definitely thought about this a lot.
Well, the issue is too, like, so if that is the function of a VC, right, and it is deep tech, right, then like kind of by nature of my model, right, if it's super deep tech and it's on the edge of innovation, there's very, 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 very few people who actually understand how that's going to work and what's going on, right? So that's why, from the investor standpoint, you're scared because you just don't know what you're investing in, right?
Yeah. Isn't that a pickle?
Quite the VC predicament we got going on.
And the space for the market might also be very small. Like, how does VC get started? And my knowledge of the history of VC, I mean, it started literally with like the transistor revolution, like, and who was buying computers like at that time when they were enormous, like governments, like huge research outfits, like scientific research outfits. But you needed the money to like get started in the beginning to like bootstrap the whole thing. And then, I mean, obviously now you had this incredible flourishing of technology on top of it. Now, did the VCs of that time capture the full value of their innovations? No. But I mean, like, is it good for society ultimately? Yes. Does that mean that maybe it's not the function of VCs to invest in these kinds of things, that maybe it should be a collective effort by all of us via government? Maybe not. It's an interesting question to consider. But yeah, I have thought a lot about like, what is the purpose of a VC?
Yeah. After working in, I think I came away with the same question. Let's say.
Yeah.
So.
That was a diatribe on entrepreneurship and venture capital, but yeah, that's there.
Well, not question, but maybe just like, again, marketing perspective. What is like the name of your company? How can people find you? And give a little, actually, I don't think we did this, so for the viewers, kind of give an overview of what exactly you do.
Absolutely. Yeah. So our name is Instant Inbound, and we help people, or at least how we bill ourselves on our website. There may or may not be some things that we can work with on an individual basis, but the way that we bill ourselves is we help you avoid bad sales calls. So we essentially help you learn more about your prospects as they're going through like your marketing materials, what we call a sales funnel. And we give you this like super personalized information about them, and also get them to learn about your service before you like have to talk to them directly. So it'll save you time, increase your sales, and ultimately maybe even give you some insights on your business that you weren't aware of. So if you want to check us out, we're at instantinbound.com. And you'll see a very nice hand-drawn drawing that I don't think we're actually going to replace with a professional graphic, because I think it captures people's attention. So,
okay, nice.
So I think we're going to leave it just like that. So yeah.
You piqued my interest. I want to go see what your drawing is now. After this conversation.
It's fantastic. Yeah.
And then just give it a personal whatever check mark.
It looks like a 4-year-old draw it, but whatever.
Was that you yourself? That was your own hat? Okay.
Yeah, like MS Paint, basically. Just open it up.
Yeah, but to anyone listening, everything Chris does is of the highest excellence, and he gets results. So just giving the personal check mark of approval for Chris for anyone looking to increase their sales. Chris is the person to go to.
Thank you very much, Katie. Thank you.
Right. Now we passed the infomercial kind of thing. Just kidding.
Sponsored.
Sponsored by Instagram. If you want to find Chris on Twitter, his handle is @Chris, ChrisGereina. So make sure to give him a follow on Twitter. Always lots of value add tweets. Also, you can find his company on the internet. It's www.instantinbound.com. And again, nothing but great things to say about him and his work and what he does. So if you need to reach more customers, he is your guy. So be sure to check it out. Be sure to check out the website, www.humansoftheworld.co, and follow us on Instagram. That's @humansoftheworldpodcast. There, make sure you join our Telegram group chat and join some other cool people from around the world. So with nothing more, I hope you have a fantastic day.